Do you want to master Phasmophobia? In this video, I'm going to go through every single ghost and tell you everything you'll need to know. This game has 24 unique ghost types, each with unique behavior and abilities. You might feel overwhelmed now, but after this video, you'll learn everything you need to know and be able to identify every ghost in Phasmophobia. I'm going to go over the ghosts in order in the journal, and for each ghost I'm going to keep a similar format where I first go over behavior, sanity, hunt threshold, and then I go over the strategy on how to figure out the ghost. And if you end up finding this guide helpful, please consider leaving a like or even subscribing. Now, let's jump into these different ghost types. Spirit. The behavior of the spirit is pretty generic, and there is only one notable behavior that can really be tested, and that is smudging the ghost and then setting a timer. And the spirit cannot hunt for 180 seconds after being smudged. Every other ghost is 90 seconds, not including the demon, which is 60. This timer starts after you smudge the ghost, and even during a hunt, the timer will begin once you smudge the ghost. The timer will not begin when the hunt ends, and you cannot re-smudge the ghost during this time to reset the 180 second time. The sanity hunt threshold for the spirit is 50%, and the strategy to figure out a spirit is trying to rule out as many ghosts as you can and then attempting the smudge test. Make sure you smudge the ghost either during a hunt or try while you're in the ghost room and below 50% sanity, and then start a timer after you smudge. If the ghost does not hunt until after 180 seconds, there is a high chance for it to be a spirit, but if you're still unsure, just do a second smudge timer test and you'll probably be good. Poltergeist. The behavior of the poltergeist is pretty fun, as it is more likely to throw items, and during hunts, the poltergeist will always throw an item every half second, and you will also sometimes notice it throwing objects very far. And the poltergeist also has an ability to throw multiple objects at once, known as a polty explosion, which will also drain your sanity based on how many items were thrown. This ability itself will create an EMF 2, but each one of the thrown items will generate an EMF 3. The sanity hunt threshold for poltergeist is the standard 50%. And the strategy to find the poltergeist is to make small piles or even trails of items in and around the ghost room. I like to get in a good spot with a lot of line of sight and then wait for a hunt, and then I like to watch how it throws items during this hunt. And if it seems like it's throwing a lot of things or everything very far and very fast, then it might be a polty. My rule of thumb is if you ever doubt it's a polty, then it probably isn't. Some ghosts do just tend to naturally throw more objects, so don't mistake this for a polty. The surefire way is always just watching how it throws items during a hunt. Mare. The mares can be a little bit tricky. Mares cannot turn a light on. Things like TVs, monitors, and fuse box are not included in the mare's ability, so it can interact with these items normally. The mare has interesting roaming behavior and will usually try to migrate to a darker room with no lights on. And this also means that the mares have a higher chance to change its favorite room if the current ghost room has lights turned on. The mare has the ability to flip a light off almost immediately after a player turns it on, and there is also a 10-second cooldown on this. It can also use this ability even if the fuse box is off, but if the lights are broken in the room, it cannot use this ability. The sanity threshold is 60% if the lights are off in the room the ghost is currently in, or 40% if the lights are on in the room the ghost is currently in. The strategy for the mare is try to pay close attention to if the ghost has turned any lights on, as if it's turned any lights on, then it cannot be a mare. And the mare also has a higher chance for light breaking ghost events, and also if you find the ghost frequently roaming and changing rooms to darker areas, it could be a mare. Also, pay attention to how long you've been in the game. If it seems like the ghost hunts slightly early or slightly late, it could be a mare depending on the status of the lights. A quick note about the mare is that it interacts with the fuse box normally. There is a misconception the mare might turn the breaker off more often than other ghosts, but this is not true. Demon. The demon has an ability where it can initiate a hunt regardless of sanity levels at any time. It's just a random thing that it either decides to use or not, but this hunt can be prevented by a crucifix, and also the ability will not be able to initiate a hunt during a setup phase on lower difficulties. The crucifix's range will cover double the area if the ghost is a demon. The demon can also hunt after 60 seconds of being smudged when normally the standard time is 90, and demons can also hunt 20 seconds after the last hunt attempt. Normally it's 25. The sanity threshold is 70% for a demon, but technically with its ability, it can hunt anytime regardless. A good strategy to figure out a demon is watch for signs of an early hunt. It'll usually come down to something like a yokai or a Thaye, or obviously the demon, and it makes it easy to narrow down, especially if you listen to the ghost during a hunt. With the crucifix's increased range, try moving them to a different room and see if the ghost still triggers them. You can also do a smudge timer test for this ghost. If it tries to hunt after 60 seconds, but before 90 seconds, it's a demon. Yokai. The behavior of the yokai is pretty cool, as the gimmick is that it doesn't like people talking around it, so using in-game voice chat will increase the yokai's activity. It will hunt more often when players are talking in voice chat, and has a limited ability to detect players and electronics during hunts. Even if you are using your mic or have an electronic on, the yokai will not detect it unless it is very, very close. The sanity threshold depends on a few factors. If a player uses voice chat in the same room as a yokai, the hunt sanity threshold will temporarily be 80%. Outside of this, the normal hunt sanity threshold is 50%. The strategy to determine a yokai is usually during a hunt, break line of sight and turn on an electronic device, and also try speaking in game. If you are relatively close to the ghost and it does not detect you, then it will probably be a yokai. If the ghost ever just seems lost during hunts, then it is a pretty good indication of a yokai. Yokai can be a little pesky sometimes, so just try it a few times just to double check. Myling. The behavior for the Myling is that you will hear more ghost sounds on the parabolic mic, and during hunts, the Myling will be quiet. The footsteps are the main sign, as they will only be heard within 12 meters, which is slightly greater for the range for electronic equipment interference, and all other ghost footsteps will be heard around 20 meters, so the Myling will be very quiet during these hunts. The sanity threshold is a standard 50%, and the strategy is when within hunting range with your sanity, drop a flashlight in a hiding spot, and then during the hunt, listen for the ghost while watching your flashlight. If you can only hear the ghost while equipment is being interfered with, then it's probably a Myling. Make sure to be far enough away and avoid being near staircases, as the audio for stairs are kind of weird, and make sure the ghost is on the same floor as you while trying this test. Raiju. The behavior for the Raiju is during hunts, it will be faster if it is around a piece of electronic equipment that is turned on. If no electronics are on, or if the ghost is not near a piece of electronic equipment that is turned on, then it will be standard speed. For the sanity hunt threshold, when a piece of electronic equipment is on near the ghost, then the Raiju's sanity threshold is 65%, otherwise it's the standard 50%. The best strategy for a Raiju is that if you think it might be a Raiju, make sure to turn off most electronic items, but leave at least one on somewhere and listen to the ghost during a hunt. If you hear the ghost become fast near the electronic item, then it could be a Raiju. Double check by then turning off all electronic items and listen again. If it was normal speed but the hunt before it sounded faster, then it could be a Raiju. This can be pretty easy to mix up with a Hantu if you're not careful with your items, so just pay attention to what you have on and you'll probably be fine. Moroi. So the behavior for the Moroi is probably one of my favorites, as it will curse a player through either obtaining a response from the spirit box or by hearing whispers through the parabolic microphone. While a player is cursed, sanity drain is doubled and lights no longer prevent sanity drain. To remove the curse, a player must take a sanity medication, and even if you cure yourself, you can be cursed again later in the game, and multiple players can also be cursed. Another note about the Moroi is that the blindness effect from a smudge during a hunt will last longer, with a duration of 7.5 seconds, while the standard is normally 5 seconds. The sanity threshold is a standard 50%, and the strategy is the Moroi's speed is dependent on average sanity, and it's kind of like the opposite of the Thaye, where it starts slightly slower and will speed up over time. For each 5% average sanity below 50%, the speed will start to increase by 0.08%. So just know as time goes on, it will speed up, and at 0% sanity, it will be considerably faster. The Moroi also has line of sight speed up, so the combination of speeding up from its ability and max line of sight speed up, it will make the Moroi faster than any other ghost in the game. I sometimes mix up the Moroi and Thaye, but just remember that the Thaye does not have line of sight speed, while the Moroi does. Wraith. The Wraith has unique behavior where it will never step in a salt pile, and outside of hunts, the Wraith has a chance to teleport to a player, and this will also leave an EMF 2 when it uses this ability. The sanity hunt threshold is standard, and the strategy is that this ghost is pretty straightforward. Just place some salt down in some doorways to the ghost room or where you feel like it might walk through during a hunt. Wait for a hunt, or if the salt has been in the ghost room for a long time and has yet to step in it, then it's probably a Wraith. Just a quick note, despite what some things in the journal say or what people say online, is that the ghost cannot travel through walls. I guess hypothetically with its teleporting ability outside of hunts, it can kind of go through walls, but it will never physically walk through objects or walls during a hunt or when it's just casually roaming. So don't overthink it, just put some salt down and you'll be good. Banshee. The Banshee has a higher chance to perform a singing ghost event. The Banshee's gimmick is that it will target a player, and when the Banshee roams outside of a hunt, it will have a chance to roam to the target and essentially follow the player. When using a parabolic microphone, the Banshee has a 33% chance to do a unique Banshee scream, which is very distinct. During hunts, the Banshee will ignore all other players and focus on the target. This means that it will not chase other players, and other non-target players can even make contact with the ghost without dying. If the target dies, the Banshee will pick a new player to target. The sanity threshold for the Banshee is 50% for the target player only, not the average sanity. So once a target player is below 50%, it can hunt despite your team's sanity average maybe being higher or lower. And the best way to confirm a Banshee is hearing the Banshee scream on the parabolic microphone. There's a 1/3 chance of it happening, so it's not so hard to get. But also just take note of the behavior. If the ghost ever seems to be following a player, then maybe it could be a Banshee. Revenant. The Rev's behavior is that during hunts, if it does not detect a player, it will move incredibly slow. But once it detects a player either through line of sight or from an electronic turned on, it will speed up significantly. Basically, if you're hiding, it's slow. When you're not hiding and attracting the ghost, then it'll be very, very fast. The sanity threshold is the standard 50%, and the strategy to figure out a Rev is pretty straightforward. Hide and listen during a hunt. If the ghost is super slow, then you're going to know it's a Rev, but also if it ends up detecting a player and instantly becomes very, very fast, then you know it's 100% a Rev. Yurei. So the Yurei's behavior is a bit harder than other ghosts. It has the ability to fully close a door. Sometimes it appears to slam a door depending on how open it is, and this will drain nearby players' sanity. Locker and closet doors do not count for this ability, and exit doors can both be interacted with and have this ability used on it, and the Yurei is the only ghost that can interact with exit doors. The Yurei also has another separate ability where it can drain a player's sanity by 15% at random. And this occurs outside of hunts, and the player must be in a certain radius from the ghost. The hunt sanity threshold is standard, and for the strategy, honestly, you're either going to see the Yurei door shut slam ability, or use deductive reasoning to guess it right, and that's really all you can do for this ghost. And note that ghost events can close doors, even the front door, and these will also produce an EMF level, and that does not mean that it's a Yurei ability, as it was a ghost event interaction causing the EMF, not the Yurei. Hantu. So the gimmick for the Hantu is that it likes cold rooms. It cannot turn the fuse box on, and is also twice as likely to turn the fuse box off. This can sometimes seem to be mistaken for a Mare ability, but the Hantu is the ghost that will turn the fuse box off more often. During hunts, the Hantu's speed is affected by how cold the room is. The colder it is, the faster it will be, and obviously the Hantu will be at its fastest when the room is freezing. The Hantu does not have line of sight speed up during hunts, and actually during hunts, if the breaker is off, There will be an occasional cold breath that you can see visually coming from the Hantu's mouth, which is always going to be a telltale sign of a Hantu. Another note on the Hantu is that freezing temps is a forced evidence, meaning that it will always show freezing temps on difficulties that are hiding evidence and have at least one evidence you can get. So hypothetically, if you're on insanity, a Hantu would always be giving you freezing temperatures. The hunt sanity threshold is 50%. And the strategy is to identify the Hantu through a hunt. Take note of its speed, and also check to see if it speeds up with line of sight. And does the speed ever seem to change? Is the breaker off? Make sure to check for cold breath if the breaker is off. And this one isn't too hard, but it's easy to mix up with the Moroi and Raiju sometimes, so just double check your tests. Onryo. The Onryo's gimmick involves flames. And if a player is dead, the Onryo will start to blow out candles and flames more often. The Onryo is interesting as any attempts to hunt within 4 meters of a lit candle or campfire or even a lighter, it will then blow out that flame and the hunt will fail. The flame will always take priority over a crucifix, and every third flame blown out by an Onryo will cause it to attempt to hunt regardless of sanity. The hunt sanity threshold is 60%, but can technically hunt earlier with its flame ability, and the strategy is pretty straightforward for this as well, as anytime a lit candle is on top of a crucifix and that crucifix burns, then it's probably not going to be an Onryo. Also count how many times a candle or lighter or fire gets blown out. On every third blowout, see if the crucifix goes off. Obake. The Obake has a lot of different behaviors. One thing to note is that it does not have a 100% chance to leave UV fingerprints after interacting with a door, light switch, keyboard, etc. And when the Obake leaves behind UV, there is a 1/6 chance for it to be a unique 6-finger handprint, 2-finger light switch, or 5-finger keyboard print. The Obake also has an ability to reduce the remaining time for existing UV fingerprints on the map by half, and during hunts the Obake has set amount of blinks that it will shapeshift on, 12th, 27th, 39th, etc. And you don't need to remember these, just get a good line of sight where you can look at the ghost a lot, and then you'll probably be able to see it. The Obake has forced UV similar to a Hantu, and will always show on difficulties with 1 or more evidence, even if the evidence is being hidden. The Obake will always give you UV. The hunt sanity threshold is standard 50%, and the strategy is if you're playing on a difficulty with at least one piece of evidence, it'll probably be pretty easy to get the unique UV prints. So look out for the 6-finger handprints on doors, and then obviously also watch it during hunts, and then you might be able to see the unique shapeshift. It's pretty easy to miss these though, so maybe take multiple hunts just to make sure. Deogen. The Deogen is known for its speed when far away and slowness when it's near a player. The Deogen has unique spirit box interaction. While within 1 meter of a Deo, there's a 33% chance for very heavy breathing to occur. The spirit box is also a forced evidence for the Deogen. And the main gimmick is that the Deogen will always find players during hunts, even if they're hiding and have no equipment on. And when the Deo is outside a certain radius from a player, it will be very fast. And then when it gets near a player, it will be very, very slow. The hunt sanity threshold is 40%, and the strategy is that usually you'll have a smudge this late into the game, and if you're hiding and it seems to fly towards you, just be ready to bolt from your spot in case it is a Deogen. You'll have a short window of time to escape before getting cornered, so hopefully you have a clear escape route or a smudge. Phantom. Behavior for the Phantom is pretty interesting. If you get a successful ghost photo, the ghost will immediately disappear. It will not show up in the ghost photo, and you'll notice there's no electronic interference in the photo. The Phantom also has the ability to choose a random player and travel to them, kinda similar to a Banshee and a Wraith in a way, and during hunts, the Phantom will be very hard to see. The amount of time the ghost is invisible between flickers is longer than normal. The hunt sanity threshold is standard, and the strategy is to try and take a ghost photo during a ghost event, and if you see it disappear after a photo and confirm you did get the ghost photo, that's a great way. Just be careful no one accidentally stepped in it and made the ghost event end early. And also keep in mind that photos are client side, so whoever took the photo is going to have to be the judge to see if it's a Phantom or not. And during hunts, the ghost will be very hard to see, so if you feel like you can barely see the ghost during a hunt, it could be a Phantom. Jinn. The Jinn cannot turn off the fuse box. but can still be tripped by turning on too many lights. The Jinn will sometimes use an ability that lowers the sanity of one player in the room within a short distance by 25% if the breaker is on. And the main way to tell a Jinn is from a unique line of sight speed up during hunts. If the Jinn is further than 3 meters away, it will be somewhat quick, but once it's getting close and within 3 meters, it will start to become normal speed. And this will only occur if the fuse box is on during a hunt. The sanity hunt threshold is standard, and the strategy is to wait for a hunt and get in a good spot with a long line of sight. Make sure to listen to the ghost first before it sees you. Then let the ghost see you while keeping your distance, and watch the line of sight speed up. If it speeds up instantly when it sees you and you're far away, then it's a Jinn, but don't confuse this with the Rev. The Jinn is normal speed outside of this ability, and it will kind of decelerate when it gets closer to the player, so just keep that in mind. Another way to tell a Jinn is leaving an EMF near the fuse box while it's on, and if the EMF goes off at the fuse box but the fuse box did not turn off, then it could be a Jinn using its ability. Shade. The Shade is a very shy ghost and won't interact with objects as much. Shades are less likely to perform a ghost event, but this chance will increase as your sanity goes down. The Shade also has a higher chance of appearing as a shadowy figure during ghost events, and if one person is in the same room as the Shade, it will not be able to interact, perform a ghost event, or start a hunt. The sanity threshold is 35%, and the strategy is if the ghost seems like it hasn't done a whole lot, it could be a Shade. If you're in the room for a while and you know you have low sanity but it still hasn't hunted yet, could be a good sign for a Shade as well. Also, if you think it's a Shade, you can try stepping out of the room with low sanity and see if it tries to hunt shortly after. Oni. The Oni is like the opposite of the Phantom in a way. During hunts, it will be very visible, and the periods of the visible ghost model will be much longer than the invisible parts. The Oni cannot perform the airball ghost event, which is a ghost event where a ball of fog flies towards the player. The Oni will also lower your sanity by 20% if a ghost event successfully collides with a player, and the Oni will also perform ghost events more frequently. The hunt sanity threshold is standard, and the strategy is to take note if the ghost does an airball event, rule out an Oni if it does. If it seems like an Oni, wait for a hunt and watch the blinks. It will be very, very visible. Goryo. The Goryo is almost anchored down to the ghost room in a sense. It will not roam far, and will not leave its favorite room as much, and it cannot change favorite rooms. The Goryo has forced dots due to its ability, and dots for the Goryo will only be able to be seen if no players are in the same room as the ghost, and can only be seen on a video camera. The hunt sanity threshold is default 50%, and the strategy is if you see dots while in the room, you can rule out Goryo. If you are on 0 evidence, it can be hard to get the Goryo. Try utilizing motion sensors and salt to track the ghost, and if it seems like the ghost is hanging around the same spot all game, it could be a Goryo. And then obviously if you only see dots when no one is in the room and on a camera, then you'll know it's going to be a Goryo. The Twins. Despite a somewhat misleading name, the Twins is actually just one ghost, but acts like two in a sense. It has the ability to interact within a very short radius, but also has a separate very large radius. The Twins will either hunt from its location, or the last place it interacted with an object in a larger radius. And the Twins will either be slightly slower or slightly faster than normal speed during a hunt. The hunt sanity threshold is standard 50%, and the strategy is to be cautious as the Twins can attack from different locations due to its ability, and the best way to tell a Twins is by listening to it during hunts. If it's just very slightly faster or very slightly slower than normal speed, it might be a Twins. Just make sure to listen a few times to make sure, as it will pick one speed before the hunt, and each hunt it can either be this fast twin or slow twin. And just make sure you have your crucifixes placed, as this ghost can be kinda dangerous. The Mimic. The gimmick for the Mimic is pretty straightforward, as it can mimic any type of ghost. It will not mimic specific evidences, but rather ghost behavior, and it can even copy some abilities like Wraith not stepping in salt, Obake fingerprints or things like the Deogen breathing, but it cannot copy things like the Goryo dots interaction, as dots isn't an evidence for the mimic. And the mimic will change ghost types every 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but does not change ghost types during hunts. And the mimic will also always show ghost orbs despite not being an evidence that you mark in the book for it. Even on 0 evidence runs, you will still get ghost orbs for a mimic. The hunt sanity threshold just varies based on the ghost that it's mimicking. And the strategy is hopefully you either find all evidence and on top of this get ghost orbs, which you'll always get 1 more evidence than you're supposed to. So for an example, if you're on a 3 evidence run, you're going to get 4 pieces of evidence including the ghost orbs, and then on 0 evidence you will always see ghost orbs in the ghost room as well. And then outside of the ghost orbs, if the ghost is clearly changing its behavior or even performing a lot of different ghost abilities, you can figure it out this way. Thaye. The Thaye is like the opposite of a Moroi and starts off very fast and aggressive, but becomes more shy and slow over time. Every 1 to 2 minutes, the ghost will attempt to age if a player is in the same room as a ghost. And I'll lump the sanity information into this because it's pretty relevant to the ability, but the starting hunt sanity threshold is going to be 75%, but that threshold will reduce by 6% per successful age attempt. And the ghost speed will also reduce by 0.175 meters per second per successful aging attempt. And eventually the hunt sanity threshold will reach 15%. The hunt speed will be very slow, and the ghost interaction rate will be very low as well. The strategy is that with the aggression with hunts and events and interactions at the beginning of the match, the best way to tell is usually by hunts, as they can hunt early and will be initially very fast. As more successful aging attempts are made, the ghost will reduce its threshold and speed, so over time the ghost is just going to slow down and become more shy. And the Thaye's speed is going to be the same for the entire hunt, and what I mean by that is it's not going to age in the middle of a hunt and then its speed is going to change and start getting continuously slower. If it ages during a hunt, that slowness is going to be applied to the next hunt. And there we go, 24 ghosts, everything important you need to know. And I hope you found this helpful, and thank you so much for watching.